Do you ever feel split in two? Like there's the science part of you that loves cold, hard facts, that likes the data, that needs to be grounded. Doesn't, you've got some real problems. You got some real health concerns that you don't want to just wish away, or you think can't just be wished away. You need something super concrete and doable. And then there's the other part of you, like especially if you get cancer, where you suddenly start remembering God, and you start reaching for a connection to the divine, and you start wondering what happens after death, and like all the big questions of what's the purpose of my life, and all the meaning that comes in. So today's video, I talk about how we don't have to actually keep those two experiences in separate compartments, and how if you can let them interpenetrate, they'll both work better. Enjoy. So today I wanted to talk about science and spirit. Science and spirit. If your science and your life are kept in two separate compartments, something's missing in both. And in this political atmosphere of tribes, it just feels like we take sides because we can just see the hole in the other side. And so we just sort of cling to the side that we're more comfortable with. So if we're more religious, we cling to belief. And if we're more science, we cling more to data and observation. And it wasn't always this way. All right. Before, like a couple thousand years ago, the science perspective really just wasn't around. People participated, like in the philosophic sense of that term, like they merged with life, and it gave them like amazing superpowers that we don't have. Like they could tell which herbs to use for various ailments. They could, like they could see the spiritual realities behind the bushes and the trees and the rocks and certainly the people. But as evolution progressed, like in the last few hundred years, it kind of flipped, and we became, well, back in Pythagoras' day, that was like the beginning of science, when he started putting number and things like that onto it. And anyway, but in the last couple hundred years, science has really, really, really taken hold. And with it, it's been an explosion of inventions and power, human power. And to have right relationship with this, a lot of people just say, well, my religion is science. Like the scientific method is my framework for living. And that's fine, as long as we don't, like sometimes what happens is we get a kind of inner amnesia, like we forget how to see the spirit behind the tree or in the tree. We forget to see we forget how to time travel. We forget how to heal. We forget, we try to organize everything with our amazing intelligence instead of letting some holistic whole thing do it for us. And that's where my work lives. I really live in the meeting place of observation and of science. I truly consider myself a scientist. And I also observe the mystery, because I truly am a clairvoyant. I truly have been, I'm one of the first American acupuncturists. I'm an herbalist. I'm a mother. These things require and thrive on better and better and better intuition, and observable things. I speak both languages, and I think most of us do, right? So like my biomedical training, I'm all but dissertation in neurophysiology. So I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. I've just physiology, chemistry, all those things. They trained my mind how to observe changes, like statistics, like learning that correlation's not the same as causation. Like these are all really, really helpful tools for living not just in technology land, but in the spiritual land. And I know that I feel like this is part of my contribution to you and to the world, is to model a little bit or just open up the conversation. I'm not saying that I'm the leader in this, but I do open up the conversation where these two parts of us, the very Western part of us that's science, 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 and the very other real part of us that notices this thing, that notices serendipity happening, that notices healing happening for no apparent reason. That's what I do. So let's talk about where this belongs. So I have this biography, right, of being this super holistic practitioner, metaphysical. Like I love Rudolf Steiner. I've studied Hermetic magic. I've studied the Kabbalah. I'm clairvoyant. I live in the forest. Well, right now I live in the desert. So I'm just so tuned into natural healing in ways that most people aren't. But then I have all that biomedical training and professional work in hospitals and clinics, interacting professionally with other health professionals. So how do we do this with the Bengston Method? Okay. So the Bengston Method has been shown time and time again to cure cancer in mice, and good placebo, double-blind controlled studies, or anyway, controlled studies, and I feel like, how do I do this? I remember once talking to this about with Bill Bengston, and sometimes my client would have a hard time getting better, and I would say, why isn't it responding? And he says, I think they're believing too much. And I really understood that. And so one time we were in clinic together, and we both had our hands on a patient, and he says, you feel that? And then later we talked privately. He said that was them blocking a genuine spiritual experience. He didn't know how to say it in front of the patient. I think now I've developed so that I can invite the patient into opening. But at the time he felt like it was like attacking their belief system, and he needed to be helpful, not unhelpful. But the idea that a blind belief in anything actually cuts you off from a genuine spirituality is something that I've learned how to articulate and how to help my patients with. And I'm trying to just introduce this concept today so that you can let these two worlds inside you start penetrating each other. Like they don't have to be either or. They really don't. So I consider myself a spiritual scientist. I apply the scientific method to science. Let's take a really blatant example that's, of course, too blatant, but it just illustrates a point. So if I'm busy believing that the direction I'm pointing east is east, and it's actually west, if I keep believing how do I say this? I want to believe that I can be aware so that I can go in the direction I want to go in, not that this is the direction I'm going in is the right direction. And then, so for me, belief comes after awareness. It shouldn't come and block awareness. So if I believe that I'm pointing east, but I'm actually pointing west, my awareness will help me go, oh, wait a minute, it's the end of the day and the sun's going down. That's definitely not east, that's west. Then my awareness comes into me, and now I believe I'm facing west. Now, is that a result of me believing, or is that me now aware that, oh, the sun is setting, so that's probably west over there, not east. So you can see that the belief comes out of awareness. It doesn't come and poke us down and push us down into believing stuff that isn't helpful, that isn't true. So how do I do this with the Bengston Method? So when I'm creating my list, so the Bengston Method has 3 sections. The first one is building your list. In that part, I like to use my metaphysics. So I will commune with the items on my list. I will pretend like they have, like I anthropomorphize them, or I expect them to be living. Like, so if I want, one of the images on my list could be like I want to lose weight. So I'm staring at the scale with my feet on it with the magic number. Like I could use my metaphysics, my spiritual awareness, my prayer, my intuition, to ask my supraconscious, to ask God, to ask divine grace, to give me a fuller, more inspiring image for being at my ideal weight than just staring at the scale. And something will occur to me if I ask in that way. And I call that a spiritual practice, not a, because it's a thinking thing. I'm opening up my perceptual box to a new way of looking at something. To me, that's a spiritual process. Okay, and so that's where I put all that business of and then once I see that image, and I'm giving this example of the ideal weight, I want to pretend that I am there, standing there, in there, being there. And that you could say is belief, but you could also say it's resonance. I want to resonate deeply with this possibility. So like the casual vernacular is I want to believe that I'm there at my ideal weight. Since the word bothers me, I say I want to resonate deeply with the truth of this possibility. And I just like that language because I feel like I'm open. I realize the reason I'm not at my ideal weight is because I have perceptual barriers and I'm trying to resonate with something that's just beyond what I can perceive. And that's, again, a spiritual practice, which you can give spiritual language to, or you can give biomedical language to. All right. So once my list is created, and I do help my patients holistically program their list. We program the items on their list physically, with their life force, with emotions, with the image, of course, and with spiritual awareness. And so it just becomes this thing that's pretty exciting. And very motivating. And when you're spinning a list of those images, it's a very different experience than just like, okay, I think I want to be thin and rich. And, here's a bunch of stuff I want. It's a really huge connection to a fuller version of yourself. So that's where I put the metaphysics the most. When I'm actually doing my healing, including when I do the distance healing in the Facebook group, I'm just in the here and now. I'm just watching and observing. So I observe things physically. I observe things with my life force, with my patient's life force. I observe things emotionally. If I suddenly get a fear of dread and I'm just like minding my own business, that's often a shadow, that's emotional shadow that's being healed. And I also observe spiritually, like, is there new meaning, purpose? Is there a fuller, wild applause for this person's journey? There's lots of spiritual feedback that I observe. And I train my clients how to observe. It's not like if I ask you to believe that peace is filling the room, you can kind of create an atmosphere of peace. But if I ask you to observe and just be neutral, and this feeling of peace arises, it's like the peace is a result of the healing. It doesn't try to cause the healing. And those healings are always so much more foundational because they're not coming from my ego. They're just, I'm witnessing and it's somehow coaxing something into being that I'm as surprised and delighted by as anybody else. All right, so my metaphysics kind of fuels this creative process, my awareness, things to be aware of. But my science background keeps me honest, because really the only place of accountability is the physical. All right? You can think of killing somebody, but you don't go to jail. You can think of healing or not healing, but, it's like if you live or die physically, that's really the place of accountability. So a lot of what we want to do is notice physical changes. And you can go to the doctor and they can take their tests, but there's a lot of things that you can notice in the here and now physically that change when you do healing. So this ability to observe everything, even our open hearts, even our longing, even our senses of agape, even we can say it's not that you're cold and cruel. Like the most amazing scientists that I know are deeply passionate about their work. There's a lot of love in their work. It's not cold and cruel just to be in observation. You can observe with a wide open heart and you'll probably observe better. So I encourage you to consider that there's your rational mind and the things that are mysterious but are nonetheless still real to you, and how they can interpenetrate each other. The mystery can penetrate your thinking, and your thinking can penetrate the mystery, and you will have a more coherent, more powerful healing experience. Okay, so if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're watching this on Facebook, let's go into, I'm now going to go into a distance healing, which is reserved for Spirit Gate Cancer Support Facebook group members. It's just a way to make a little safe space so it's out of touch with the YouTube algorithm. You have to put a little bit of intention in. Anybody's welcome to join us on Fridays. And you can rewatch the whole session for I think 30 days on Facebook. So it's a nice resource for people. Okay.